Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're cutting straight through the noise to track the macro trends that are currently driving artificial intelligence. We're going to take a really fascinating journey together, starting all the way up with these sort of ethereal, theoretical software breakthroughs and tracing that exact thread all the way down to the multi-billion-dollar physical hardware that actually powers the whole shebang.
So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to hit breakthroughs in AI models, then corporate battles and talent, move into vulnerabilities and security breaches, touch on geopolitics, regulation, and ethics, and finally wrap up with the infrastructure and hardware boom. Let's jump right in.
Section 1. Breakthroughs in AI models, the software layer.
Over just the last 24 hours, we've seen some absolutely staggering new capabilities drop that redefine what these models can do out in the wild. 688 billion. That's not a typo. That is the actual parameter count of SK Telecom's newly released AX K2. It's a massive mixture of experts model, and incredibly, they just dropped it right onto Hugging Face under an open Apache 2.0 license. This essentially marks it as Korea's second sovereign foundation model under a government-backed program.
And this brilliantly illustrates the leap we're seeing in OpenWeight's performance. Because while it has 688 billion total parameters, it's only using 33 billion active parameters during inference. This means you're getting massive brain power without literally melting your servers. The benchmarks here are just phenomenal. We're talking a 97.1% on the AMI 26 evaluation and an 80.5% on KMLU Pro. Overall, it's posting massive 32.2-point average gains over its predecessor across incredibly tough benchmarks.
Moving beyond text, we also saw massive visual breakthroughs today. To really apply this new technology in a practical workflow, here is a detailed instruction for you. Take a standard 1920 by 1080 pixel flat raster image and input it directly into Keist's new Redesign agentic framework. Within seconds, the agent completely reconstructs it, separating the typography from the vectors, and outputs a fully editable Figma file with exact pixel-perfect measurements. It's wild. Meanwhile, Adobe's Wonder allows you to input a single 2D image and synthesize a navigable 60-second playable video environment, rendering at 16 frames per second. The application potential for designers is just unprecedented.
Section 2. Corporate battles and talent, the human layer.
Now, all this software innovation isn't happening in a vacuum, right? It's creating intense ideological and competitive friction in the heart of Silicon Valley. Mark Zuckerberg is publicly breaking ranks. He recently told the Financial Times that Washington shouldn't ban Chinese AI models, and he's pushing heavily for open weights and third-party peer review. In doing so, he is directly calling out competitors like OpenAI and Anthropic, basically accusing them of trying to use Washington's regulatory influence to entrench their own closed models. We are neutrally observing this clash of business models, but man, the divide is stark.
Meanwhile, the talent war is literally reaching a fever pitch. Anthropic is facing heavy criticism from OpenAI-aligned figures like David Sachs over their competitive tactics and strict safety guardrails. Yet despite this backlash, they are aggressively poaching top-tier talent. Actually, get this. Roughly a quarter of DeepMind's original AlphaFold authors have left the company after some internal reassignments. And several of them, including Nobel laureate John Jumper, have jumped ship right over to Anthropic. The consolidation of brainpower right now is intense.
Section 3. Vulnerabilities and security breaches, the threat landscape.
So you might be wondering why they're fighting so hard over this talent. Well, it is entirely justified when you realize what these advanced systems are now capable of uncovering and, conversely, how vulnerable our underlying architecture still is. Anthropic just disclosed that their Claude Mythos preview model actually discovered 2 new cryptographic attacks. It found a lattice automorphism flaw in Hawk, which, by the way, is a candidate designed specifically to protect us against quantum computers, and it sped up an attack on AES 128 encryption by up to 800 times. No deployed systems were broken, thankfully, but it proves models are now finding 0 days in the very math that secures global banking.
And frankly, our human infrastructure is struggling to keep up with this. Hugging Face just published a stunning forensic autopsy of July's massive OpenAI agent breach. It was a perfect chain reaction. First, attackers used a simple HTF5 file read primitive. Then, they escalated it through a Jinja 2 template injection. And finally, they exploited stolen tailscale keys 181 times. All told, it took over 17,600 automated attacker actions.
This massive breach actually prompted OpenAI CEO Sam Altman to suggest pacing AI development, stating that this was, quote, the first security incident I have felt very viscerally. That is a massive shift from his past dismissals of slowdown proposals, and it really highlights just how seriously the industry is taking these emerging threats.
Section 4. Geopolitics, Regulation, and Ethics.
As you'd expect, when technology scales this fast, it immediately slams into the gears of global statecraft. We are watching major legal and geopolitical flashpoints unfold all at once. The FCC is acting to protect the U.S. AI supply chain by banning new imports of Chinese humanoid and quadruped robots. In the courts, XAI is suing Minnesota to block an AI notification ban, citing free speech overreach. And internationally, there are unconfirmed reports from DropSite News alleging a state actor attempt to manipulate LLM chatbot outputs regarding the Gaza conflict. We're just neutrally reporting these as they happen, but they perfectly illustrate how AI is becoming a central, undeniable pillar of global policy and law.
Section 5. The infrastructure and hardware boom, the physical layer. Let's ground all this for a second, because none of these software breakthroughs happen without massive physical engines. $14 billion. Meta and BlackRock just announced a staggering joint venture to build a 1 gigawatt data center in El Paso, Texas. BlackRock's consortium holds 80% ownership, and they're targeting a 2028 online date. To put that in perspective, this is infrastructure on the scale of small cities.
To handle this insane physical scale, the actual network protocols we use are having to adapt. The Model Context Protocol, which is basically the bridge connecting AI to external data, just shipped its largest spec update ever. They shifted to a fully stateless core, dropping session handshakes entirely just to handle the sheer data throughput. They also formalized a strict 12-month deprecation policy to keep the ecosystem moving at lightning speed.
You can literally see this insatiable demand showing up in mixed hardware earnings today. SK Hynix saw its revenue triple year over year on memory chips, even if it slightly missed those incredibly lofty estimates. Seagate completely crushed Wall Street estimates based purely on AI cloud storage demand, and NXP beat estimates on physical AI design wins. The physical supply chain is quite literally straining under the weight of AI demand.
But honestly, nothing paints a better picture of this hardware boom than Kioxia. Back in 2023, they were cash-strapped. Now, riding the wave of hyperscaler orders, they are projecting a phenomenal 30 times jump in operating income for Q1 of fiscal year 2026. It is a complete financial reversal, driven entirely by the need to store the massive amounts of data these models generate.
Which leaves us with a critical question to chew on today. As we build the massive physical body of the AI ecosystem, these $14 billion 1 gigawatt data centers, for models that are literally beginning to find flaws in modern cryptography, are we adequately securing the rapidly evolving mind inside it? Subscribe to AI Vanguard AI to stay at the cutting edge of industrial AI. Like, comment, and share. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.